Hi, everybody. My name's Traven Rice. I'm the arts and culture editor and host of the Lowdown Culture Cast, and we're here at P&T Knitwear at 180 Orchard, and we're in their community podcast studio. I encourage you to go to their website, pntknitwear.com, and check out their many offerings, including almost nightly events with wonderful authors doing readings and interviews and book signings. And they have a great cafe, and they just started serving beer and wine. I think they're going to be doing a happy hour. So it's a great spot. Come check it out. And now I'm really happy to introduce my guest, photographer Whitney Browne, who's here with me. Whitney Browne is an experimental and commercial photographer whose work explores themes of movement and gesture as reflections of mental states. And her work invites us to join the conversation she's having with her subjects. Her philosophy, Let's Meet at the Lens, is an exploration and connection that challenges her subjects to be active in her creative process. I wanted to invite Whitney. I'm so happy to have you here because we met you quite a few years ago through the Lowdown. And we were doing a story on Paul Taylor because the Paul Taylor Dance Company had just moved down here to the Lower East Side. And you had been documenting Paul Taylor and the company, but really kind of behind the scenes and his process. And how long were you doing that project?
Yes. Gosh, I was lucky enough to be able to go in to witness Taylor working with the company for, I want to say, 7 to 10 years off and on. And then really towards the end of his life, when he was creating some of his last works and also working with what I knew to be some really stronghold company members, people who had been there for a while. You know, I recognized them as being the Paul Taylor Dance Company. So I was extensively in there for the last 3 years of his life, sort of thing.
Yeah, at a really, really special time to document.
Yeah, he was I was told when I went in there that, you know, he doesn't like photographers and he didn't really love women. So when I went in there, was tasked with like really to be there, get the shot, but also hang back and be respectful to the process that was happening. So I definitely have many portraits of the back of this man's head, almost out of frustration and then also out of appreciation because I couldn't go in front of him. So I literally had to photograph either from the side or the back of him the entire time I was in there.
The entire time? And so it didn't evolve? I mean, did he start to acknowledge that you were there, or how did it end up?
I just knew the terms that I was in there for. You know, sometimes you want to push boundaries and fight things. And there were definitely times where I would scoot in, but it's atmospheric in the room. Like the rehearsal space is precious in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of emotions and things going on that to have a witness in there, like I respect the role I'm playing. And so if I'm given terms and I agree with them, I will follow them. You know, so I was okay with it. It gave the images their look, you know, because you get access, but you don't always get 100% full access, you know, and so it makes sense. Like, I was okay with it.
I'm so interested in that term that you used as a witness, as being, is that how you kind of talk about being a photographer?
I think I wear many hats, which I'm happy about. I've had professors and mentors in the past say, pick a lane. And I love so many aspects of photography. You know, so I love the way that it can be a witness and you can be there and you're always sharing your perspective. You know, the truth is from what I'm seeing through my lens. And then I also like that you can just mix it up and get experimental and just, you know, use it as a space-time machine and say things in a different language. But when I'm in the studio, I dip in between both. Like I try to be there, see what I'm seeing, honestly, like please the client. You know, I'm in there for a reason, there's an intention. And then once I feel like I get that, I'll mix it up. Like I'll do long exposure, I'll do more time, I'll realize what's going on in front of me is another medium. You know, it's another visual language. So then you can sort of meet the art where it is. You know.
And so has that always been, was that your focus from the beginning, as was dance in particular?
Not at all. Not at all. I never ever thought that I would be as entrenched in the scene as I am. My mother is a modern dancer, and so is my sister. So I grew up in a theater world, and in going to dance classes, I had to go. It was almost like daycare for me. And I was definitely the preacher's daughter, like getting kicked out of class. And so I have grown up around dance with the little baby in the modern dancer belly, and my mom was still moving. But I don't like to perform. So it was an odd relationship. There was tension there. And then when I moved to New York, my sister was a modern dancer. So I would kind of hang out with her friends, and I was comfortable. But I was a hardcore street photography and film. I mean, I didn't pick up a digital camera, and I didn't shoot to record movement until I moved to New York. But until that, I was really, really, really active street photographer. And I think it paid off because there's a certain level of anticipation you have to have, and like shamelessness when you're on the street or creating that kind of work. And it fit for performance because it, like what happens on the street, it's gone. So performance, you have to catch it.
Right.
Or else, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I have to tell you, though, every time I'm reading about a dance company that's well known in New York City and I look at certain stories, there's your photo of them quite often.
I'm happy about that. There's the dance photographer scene in New York is strong, are amazing shooters. I'm happy to be a part of it. I feel like I've worked my way, up and into it. And I think it shows when you care about the other medium, I really respect dance and I respect dancers. So I know that I'm coming in at a very specific time in that process. And so I want to execute. And then, how often are we not reading the reviews, but there's a great photo? Or, so you want to help. I want to help the community, with the work.
Yeah.
So I think witnessing comes from that place of, I don't know until I see it. With dance,
But I think it must also, the witnessing aspect of it has to come from a specific place. So it's not just the anticipating. It's sort of this open place where you're able to catch it.
You learn the language, like with Taylor. To loop it back to Taylor, the images could be wrong. Like you look at the work, and if the visual language isn't right, like literally a head could be not at the right angle, or maybe the dancer is giving a smile when the piece is serious. But I remember showing my portfolio when I first went in there, years ago, but I wanted to show Tom Carvalho, who was my mentor at the time, was an amazing performance art photographer. He was Paul Taylor's photographer for many, many, many years. So when I mentored with Tom, he threw me the bone, and that's how I got in with Taylor. He was like, hey, I go in and you do your thing in there. You treat them well. You just go shoot. I'm so sorry. That's how I kind of would get in. But I really had to learn and witness that it's disrespectful in a certain sense to not honor the language. So Taylor it looks a certain way for a reason. So when I showed my first portfolio, they nixed 9 out of the 20 images because it was something little off. So to the layman or to us, we thought it was a great photo, but it was little and I got cut. And so I really all that just helped me learn and ideally get sharper, with it.
So you have to learn their language and say that's the thing that they're trying to present. And so that's what I'm capturing.
I would hope so. I also have my sister who was a modern dancer in my ear. So I'd be going through editing photos and she'd come up to me and she'd be like, no way, that's not a select, look at the foot. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And again, it just goes back to that moment of you want to honor them. I've only got a moment. I want that foot looking good. It's like it looked good. It probably did look better than I shot it. You kind of have to meet it there. So I think that's where the dance photography, there's a training that's involved, and a training that only comes from witnessing. I do a lot of watching when I don't have the camera to my face.
So as far as you were talking about street photography and portraits, you seem to have ended up doing quite a bit of that downtown. And one of the projects that I think is really wonderful, and I'd love to hear more about, is Ray's Candy Store.
I love to talk about it. I love Ray.
So a lot of people who live in the East Village and downtown know and love Ray. He's had it's a more than a bodega, but it's a bodega, I would call it. Would you call it a bodega? For over 40 years?
He calls it a candy store. Like if you asked Ray, he would call it a candy store. Which is the reason why I'm calling this little book I'm making about him Candy Store. But it is, I guess it's hard, more a restaurant than bodega, even though you could get candy there and cigarettes. I guess it is a glorified bodega.
I mean, you can get whatever you want, but he has his specialties, and he's been there for years. So, in New York, that's what we do. If you live on the block, you go get your stuff, whatever you want, your coffee, your ice cream, he did donuts, right?
Or beignets.
Beignets,
and he's known for his Belgian French fries and deep fried Oreos, and then soft serve, and then egg creams. Yep. So if you're into New York egg creams, then you go to Ray's. And ideally you want it made by Ray. Because when I would work there, literally some people would not take the egg cream because they were like, no, Ray didn't make it. And I'm like, I swear to God, it's a good egg cream. I swear.
So how did this start? And I didn't know you worked there.
Let me redefine that term. I like to say I volunteered, but the labor was there for sure, but he didn't necessarily hire me.
Ray's is located on Avenue A.
Avenue A and 7th, right across from Tompkins Square Park. Yeah, and just right up 119 Avenue A.
And Ray is how old now?
Ray just turned 90. He will be turning 91 in January. And I mean, truly, and that... Sometimes when I'm relaxing or having a bad day, I will literally think about Ray. And I'm like, wow, he's in the shop right now, And
he's been there for 40 years?
I think closer to 43 maybe, yeah.
That's amazing.
Truly, truly amazing. And he lives around the corner, yeah.
And it's open all hours, is that right?
It's open 24/7.
So that's where it gets interesting, right? The characters can come in.
True. That's when I would
after hours
come in. I first met Ray... I had been in New York only a couple of months, and I had met my mentor, Tom Caravaggio, who was on 12th and Broadway. And so after I was done working with Tom, I would just walk the village, and I would get egg creams. That's what I would do. I was kind of broke, but I would treat myself to something New York. And I was at Gem Spa, and they were like, oh, have you tried Ray's yet? And I was like, no. So I the next time I had a few bucks or whatever, just went over to Ray's, and liked the atmosphere. I was just like, oh, this old guy doing his thing. I'm gonna come. This will be the spot I come to. And then I hung out a lot in Tompkins Square Park. I would do photography and just kind of hang out, really just to work through some anxiety I was feeling. So I would just that's what I did with photography. I would just kind of shoot, and I liked the vibe, and so I would just go to Ray's. And I was doing that for years and years, but he didn't really know me. I was just one of the faces there. And then when I had really bad mold in one of my apartments in Brooklyn, Tom Caravaggio and his wife Doris let me stay there in the loft in the back of the photo studio. And there's no real natural light back there, and so 2 a.m. looked like 2 p.m. and I would just messed with my mind, and I had incredible insomnia. So I would just leave, and so from 11 p.m. or midnight, whenever I couldn't sleep, I would just walk over to Ray's because I knew it was open. And I would get something there. And then one day I was hanging out with a friend, and I went into Ray's, and he just invited me behind the counter. He was like, I remember you, I know you. He's like, and no one was in there. And he's like, hey, why don't you make your own egg cream? Why don't you make your own fries? And I loved it. I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So I just hopped behind the counter, and I just started going. And then people started coming in. And I just had such a good time that my friends didn't know where I was. And I was like, yo, I'm at Ray's. And I was like, I'm staying. I was like, I'm just going to stay the night. And so we just had a simpatico. It just kind of worked out. And then again, I would have an insomnia moment. And so I would go to Ray's, and I'd be like, so this act of volunteerism started kind of happening. Because he liked me. He's like, hey, why don't you come work for me? And again, the same situation I did with my other mentor was the second you pay me hourly, you own me. That is my mentality. So I was like, no, this is joyful. I want to show up the way I want to show up. So I can't technically say I worked for Ray. He many times, especially when I was shooting film there, he would always just stuff the money in the tip jar in my bag, or he would force me to take a certain amount of money. But that's how I ended up bringing my camera, my Hasselblad, and it was just truly, I brought that camera with me probably 20% of the time I was actually there, and just started shooting through my depression, shooting through my anxiety. Just I had no intention of doing anything with these images except that it was a really cool thing that was happening. Like the street was coming to me, and all these characters during the graveyard shift between 10, 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. It's juicy.
Yeah.
It's juicy. It's also kind of freaky.
I'm sure.
And then also that real sweet time of getting to hang with Ray, because I would often come in so he could lay down. So it was that act of, I love Ray. I really consider him a friend. So,
how many years did you do that for? And how did you decide on what images made the cut?
I went in, really started volunteering, let's say, from 2012 to 2017. And there were stints in there where I would be in there every day for months, and then I wouldn't be in there for months. So it was that kind of relationship, again, of he got me when he got me kind of thing. And then one time he went into the hospital, and so I literally ran the shop for a month and a half, which was exhausting. I'm sorry, what were you asking me?
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow. So you were very invested in this.
I got invested.
And it became a project. I'm sure it wasn't the intention.
You asked me about the images.
Yeah, how did you end up deciding on those final images?
Well, one of my best friends, Megan Norbit, was living with me at the time, and we had been going through that whole apartment scandal together with the mold. And after she moved away, she loved the images because she was the only person seeing them. I would just develop the film and show her. And she's like, this is really something. But I was like, yeah, whatever. So what is it, almost 10 years later, I'm re-looking at the work during the pandemic. And so I had over 300 images. And these are I'm shooting on film and really kind of weird lighting, so every time I got a photo, it was a victory for me. I was just yes, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so I went and looked at all of the images I had, like I said, over 300, which seems like nothing compared to the amount of time I spent there. And I needed help with the process. I'm not always great in believing in my own projects from the beginning. So what I did is that the Bronx Documentary Center, are you familiar with them? Amazing organization, Mike Camper up there, what he has started is truly pivotal, in my opinion, of just community organization and real amazing photographers. Anyways, Bronx Documentary Center, for sure. They brought in 2 amazing book designers from the Netherlands, and I signed up for the course. And I just went up to the Bronx every day for 5 days and had them help me. Because what I really learned, the nut of this story is that I couldn't pick the images. I couldn't pick the work.
You just needed an editor.
I really needed an editor, and I realized I think I could do it if it was something maybe a little bit, I don't know, I just really needed that extra eye. I didn't want it to feel like a complete diary, and I had been so bored of these images, to be honest with you. I've lived with them, so they have different connotations to me. I didn't even know if they were any good, whatever that means. So anyway, I had help. And so I really trusted this man, and he helped me lay out the book. And I switched out a couple of things. This being said, that was for it being self-published. I talked with another photographer who I really admire, Brian Fink, and he suggests that I get a publisher. He's like, you will feel more satisfied if you get a publisher. So I have the dummy copy of the book I made, and I've just been sitting on it looking for a publisher, which I really, really hope to get out by next spring, because Ray will be 91. I want him to reap some of the rewards of it. I obviously want to sell this book and then have it go for profit and give the large percentage of the proceeds to Ray. So even though he won't stop working, it'll whatever.
Wow. Okay. I want that too.
Thank you. Yes, I'm putting it into action.
Well, I love the photos. I think they're fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan, and I want to talk a little more about the work you do as a witness. I don't know. I just want to acknowledge the fact that I knew you through the lowdown, and I knew your work. And when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I was about to go through treatment, there was just a little voice in the back of my head. I don't even know how it came about, but I decided to shave my head as opposed to try to save my hair during chemo. And I just thought it might be a good idea to document it. And so you were the one that I asked to do it, and I'm so grateful. And I was
flattered.
Just looking at those today. What's an experience like that? What's that like for you? An experience like that?
Thank you for asking. Ultimately, I first say flattered. You know, to have someone think of me in a time where they want to be seen is powerful and incredibly activating. I mean, it honestly gives me goosebumps right now. Like, I don't try to take it lightly. I'm flattered. I get this feeling of like an open vessel. You know, you just want to go like open palm, open vessel. Like, if you need me, I can tighten up, but like just to kind of hold that space, you know. And like I said, I can press in more if need be, but yeah, just flattered, I guess.
Well, you did. It was just a beautiful balance. You know, I was just glad you were there, and certainly didn't get in the way of it. And I'm so grateful now, looking back. I was looking at them today, the photos, just to have those. It's really, really special and important.
I feel like I grow, you know, truly to witness those things where I'm like, wow, I have not had the experience that you're having, you know. So to be able to watch it, your partner was there, you know, in the space, and you know, that whole moment, I think I witness a lot of bravery all the time. You know, when people do things and they're afraid or something, you know, I find it amazing. Also in dance, you know, it's like people who leave it all out there is like very attractive to me, or I tend to gravitate towards it. So I think when that little voice, like you mentioned, comes into your head, it also is a nice way to think about photography, because sometimes we're so overstimulated and photography is forced in our face all the time. The fact that you want to remember something and it can be for you feels like a loving gift in a way. Like, even when I shot a dance show yesterday, and when I'm at my best self, I feel like I'm delivering a gift, you know, even to a client. It's like you want them to like be happy or like you want them to like have the experience that they were hoping for, or like you want to just like rock someone's world, you know, kind of thing. Like, of like, whoa, we all look, it's ubiquitous, right? We're always looking all the time, but it's like the lens is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you see what I see, you know?
Yeah.
It's cool. Yeah. So I, like that experience of being able to witness you getting your head shaved, like, helped me grow. You know, like I almost not like I could take it on like I had it, but I was able to see it. And so that old adage, I guess, seeing is believing.
Well, it takes I just think it takes a certain type of person to be able to be present in that way, because it's such a scary, fragile, delicate, human, vulnerable time.
Well, no, I appreciate you mentioning it now, but I hate to say I loved it, but you know, it's like I'm there for it. Like, I'm there with love, you know, ideally.
That's what I recognize. That's what I wanted to recognize. Speaking about sort of being present for personal experience, I wanted to ask you about the project that's very personal to you, which is, and I've seen some of the photos and video, which I think were so lovely, and they're documenting your grandmother, your mother, yourself, and your sister. Generational girl group.
Yes. My sister and I one year decided to take a little road trip from like Las Vegas into Central California, which is where my grandmother lives. And along the road, we started making these funny little videos just with each other, kind of like movement scapes in the landscape. That was my idea. I was like, oh, I don't want to take still images. I want to kind of play with these still frames and then have the movement in it. And I want to be in it. I don't know why, but I just wanted to be in it. And so that's what we were playing with. And when we arrived to my grandma's house, we were all there, like my mom, my sister, and I. And so I knew I could have it. I don't know, I just had a couple of minutes where I was like, everyone's game. Let's just do this. And so I came up with like a little choreography and truly just set up my iPhone. And we do like 1 or 2 takes. That's it. You know, but they became these little moving family portraits, which were nice. All the women in my family have a rejection of photography. It's like frustrating for me. I think there's something, I think dancer dysmorphia is real, to be honest, where I feel like people like don't see themselves the way that other people see them. You know, they really get entrenched in what they look like. Maybe that's also why I try to come at photography or like dance photography particularly with like a boom, because I'm like, no, see what I see. You know, like I want you to see what I see.
You mean a rejection of photography? You mean they're
They
very
just hate having their picture taken.
self-conscious.
Totally. And like are very uncomfortable in front of the camera. But if I have them moving, they're okay because they're movers. Mm-hmm. So I was like, let me be a little uncomfortable and get in there because my mom and sister were comfortable and my grandma was just game. But just generational girl group videos were great. I ended up putting them in a couple little shows, but they bring me delight and joy. And it's nice to find like people relate to them too in a way of maybe synchronized movement with the women in your family. It feels good. You know, that's why I do them.
And you're going to continue this documenting?
I have tried. My grandmother has gone into retirement, as she likes to say. She can't move as much anymore. And I don't want her to not have her dignity in that. So I think I stopped asking. But I joked. I was like, all right, we got into an art show. We're done. You know, like let's hang up the hat. But I have a feeling that my sister and my mom and I will continue to. My grandmother is 98 and, you know, getting older, things are changing. So I did kind of have this thought where I was like, wow, I hope to do another movement video to express the void when my grandmother's gone. You know, because I think that practice can keep going. It's a nice visual language and like physical language. Now I have started photographing stills, film. I spent 5 weeks in California with my grandmother just in June. And I watched that transition of, you know, this incredibly, incredibly strong woman have to decide to like fight using a walker. You know, she can't drive anymore. So I just had to express, I don't know, I just started shooting. I brought my film camera up there and I was trying to be present and spend all this time with her. And then she watches like crazy Fox News and stuff. So I would have to go outside. And during that time, I just decided to photograph the house from the outside, my shadow. I realized like this is the house my mom grew up in. And so, gosh, when I got this film back just a couple of weeks ago, I almost started to cry because it's like some of the most emotionally like impactful film for me. I had been shooting commercially and that was it. I realized I hadn't really been shooting for myself. And so now I'm really taking the camera back, honestly, just to heal and to grow a little bit. I've spent my whole life running away from my family, and now because I have the camera, I'm ready to go. And maybe it's helping me, this conversation, really see that like I need to witness that. Like there's something there I need to see. And so I'm just so happy to be connected to my medium again, even to the point where like I don't talk to my father that much. And this year I'm gonna go spend Thanksgiving with him and his wife in Las Vegas. And I'm gonna bring my camera. And that's truly one of the only reasons why I feel like I can go, is because I want to take portraits. I have no idea what they're going to look like, but I have, like, having that experience photographing the women in my family. Now I feel so compelled to, like, go back into scorched earth, you know, a little bit, you know, but, like, keep it going. And maybe I could even bring that movement practice in with my dad. So I'm at my best when I'm curious, and I'm really curious. So
that's fantastic.
I think it'll be healing in a way. And I hope then it, you know, creates ripples. I'm not necessarily the artist who has like the most insane like thesis statement about their work. You know, I kind of have to like make and then compile. I just go out there and then have to kind of put it back together. So
okay,
we'll see.
Well, please keep us posted.
I will. I'm really excited about this work. I'm just like giddy.
Please keep sharing and keep doing that and keep making the space for your personal work, because I think it's fantastic. And I'm really glad you were here with us today.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much.